Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Rohini Kosolu, and I am Domestic Policy Advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris. It is my pleasure to introduce our next event in the first ever White House Maternal Health Day of Action, a conversation between Vice President Harris and Olympic champion Allyson Felix. Maternal health, and more specifically, the health of our nation's mothers and children, have long been a passion for both of these women. We will hear first from Vice President Kamala Harris, who has spent decades of her career fighting to improve the lives of mothers and children in our country. As District Attorney of San Francisco, Vice President Harris worked to create the Center for Youth Wellness focused specifically on childhood trauma. And as Attorney General of California, she opened the first ever Bureau of Children's Justice, which focused exclusively on protecting the rights of children. Over the last several years as Senator, Vice President Harris brought the issue of maternal health and, most importantly, the issue of women dying during childbirth to our nation's forefront. As Senator, she introduced the Maternal Care Act, the Uterine Fibroids Research and Education Act, and the Black Maternal Health Momnibus Act. This is now a key component of the Biden-Harris agenda and the Build Back Better Act. In conjunction with President Biden, she is leading this call to action today to improve the state of our maternal health care. Thank you, Vice President Harris. We will also hear from Allyson Felix. Allyson is an American track and field champion and icon. She's the most decorated American track and field athlete in Olympic history, having earned 11 total medals from 5 consecutive games, including 7 gold medals. She's been featured in Time 100's Most Influential People list for 2 years in a row and previously served on the Obama-Biden Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition for over 6 years. She has spent her career advocating for mothers around the world on everything from maternal health care to job protections for pregnant women. We are so thankful to have her join us at the White House today. And so, without further ado, here is Vice President Kamala Harris and Allyson Felix.
Thank you, Rohini. It's so good to be with you again. We were talking backstage. The last time we were together, it was at the very beginning of COVID, and
Yes.
we tried to do an Instagram Live, and I couldn't figure out how to work it.
We were all trying to figure it out.
But, and so some time has passed, but your leadership on this issue has remained constant. And in addition to all that you have achieved in terms of your excellence and how you inspire so many, you have been an extraordinary advocate on this issue. And I want to thank you because you really do inspire me and so many people around our country. And so your daughter, Cameron, is now 3.
Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about the experience you had during your pregnancy and childbirth that led you to really use your voice in such a courageous way on this issue?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I'm just so grateful for all the work that you have always done on this topic. Yes, my daughter just turned 3, but when I became pregnant, you know, as an athlete, my health is something that I'm always thinking about.
Right.
And I've always lived a really healthy lifestyle. You know, I didn't even almost think twice about, you know, getting through my pregnancy. And at 32 weeks, I went into the doctor for a routine appointment. And right away, there were some concerning things that were happening. You know, I was spilling protein, my blood pressure was up, and so I was sent to the hospital for further monitoring. Once I got there, things started to rapidly kind of shift out of control, and I was diagnosed with a severe case of preeclampsia. And it just kind of went downhill from there. I ended up having an emergency C-section, and my daughter was born 2 months early. And I'm so grateful that I was able to, you know, eventually walk out of the hospital. And even though my daughter, you know, spent time fighting for her own life in the NICU, we all walked out together. And, you know, as we know, there are so many women who that's not the story. And so my eyes were opened, and now, you know, it's a passion on my heart to just do more work in this area and raise awareness to what is happening.
So on that point, you, in addition, again, to your professional excellence as an athlete, you served 6 years during the Obama-Biden administration as an advocate for health and wellness and fitness. And in that way, you really were, again, such an important advocate on the issues that relate to those areas. Can you talk about the work you have been doing as an advocate on this issue of maternal health and what we need to do as a nation to be better on this issue?
Yeah, well, I'm so happy that, today is happening and that, funds have been committed to this area. I've been, raising awareness. I've partnered with March of Dimes, who's been doing important work for so long in this space. And I feel like really sharing those stories. I remember my time in the hospital and just feeling like I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know what to expect. And hearing, what other people went through and that hope that they gave me was huge. But I think also sharing those stories lets women, and especially women of color, know that they are at risk and what they can do to prepare themselves.
So Allyson, take us through those moments when you are in those rooms talking with these incredible women. What are those conversations and what do they share with you that the nation needs to know to fully understand and care about this issue? Can you share with us and share with the nation what folks need to understand about this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that really touched my heart was this is not an issue that, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter. I had great health care. I am very fortunate and very blessed. But I still found myself in this situation. Hearing from other women that their pain wasn't believed, that they had concerns that weren't heard. And I think that is so unfortunate. What's really shocking is that 60% of these 60% of this number, can be preventable.
Right.
And that's huge, but it also, that's the exciting part, that we can turn this around.
And so when we think about this, which is we are taking this to the highest ground possible, which is having this conversation on the stage in the White House.
Yes.
Let's talk about what the future can look like and what that would mean for women around America. And we've talked about Black maternal mortality and that Black women are 3 times more likely than other women to die from childbirth. Native women, twice as likely. Women in rural America, 60% more likely to have complications because of what we call the deserts, the unavailability of appropriate maternal care. Let's talk a little bit about what the world can look like and what the solutions look like.
Yeah, I think that a day where you're not at risk, when you become pregnant, that you are not fearful. I think about a second pregnancy for myself and what that might look like, and being able to reverse some of these issues, or going into a doctor's office and not having to be intimidated to raise concerns, and knowing that right away, if I have an issue, that I can be heard as well. And as you mentioned, the maternal deserts and having that high quality care for all women, regardless of your, the status of your insurance or where you're at, that we can all have access to that.
Backstage, you and I were talking about the importance of everyone knowing they're not alone.
Yes.
And for so many women, going through this, what should be joyous and beautiful process, can also mean feeling alone. And in particular, when women are in that setting where they're talking with a physician or talking with a healthcare provider, and feeling that they're not being heard or being reluctant to share how they are actually feeling. And there's so much about the work that you have done that is reminding women they are not alone, that this is a story that sadly is a story that many women have in common, and therefore the need for women that when they're in that room, to not feel alone and to know their power, and that it is the responsibility of that healthcare professional to hear it, to listen to it, and to act on it. So can you talk a little bit about how you have talked with women about owning and requiring the system to own its responsibility to these women?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely what you said, that it is their responsibility. And until those systems are in place the way that they should be, it does fall on women to advocate for themselves, or our partners to be there in the room to do so. I remember when I was in the hospital and being terrified of what was happening. I didn't even understand really what preeclampsia was. And, I was really grateful that my partner was able to advocate on my behalf. When things went south and I wasn't able to make the decisions on behalf of our family, that he could step up and do that. And so I want that for all women. And I want us to, for things to just be different and not to be in a situation that is so terrifying and traumatic.
And a large part of our work is on maternal systems in terms of the delivery of care for women during pregnancy and childbirth. But let's also talk about the need for us to stay connected with these women, with their partners, with the parents of the child who is now with us in terms of issues like child care and affordable child care, elder care. I've met so many around the country, mothers and fathers who are raising young children from infancy on and also taking care of senior relatives, and the need therefore to have care and assistance with caring for their children and their senior relatives. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of a nation supporting parents.
It's so important. I know my own experience when I decided to start a family and not being supported ultimately by my former sponsor, and just what that looked like and how it made me feel that I wasn't valued, and so many women who came before me who struggled and weren't celebrated. And so it's so important. I work to get child grants along with Athleta and Women's Sports Foundation to be able to support these women. I don't think you should have to choose between your profession and having a family, to be able to do both and be able to do both very well. And so continue to push forward on those efforts, because it does, it is necessary, and I think that we can do more.
Well, and people may not know, but you really do walk your talk in every way, because I happen to know how you have supported athletes who are moms who might need some help taking care of childcare. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, creating grants, to support women who are competing at the highest level and having to deal with childcare. I just remember when I came back, I started competing when my daughter was 8 months. And it was so hard to be able to travel and to have a newborn and to deal with all of these logistics and things that people didn't really think about how it would come together. And so I felt like this would be a great way to support, women as they continue to go on with their careers, and to say that you can still have your best performances after you have a family. And I'm talking, my sport is running, but this is, in all industries, women feel this. And so I think this is a way, I felt like I could do something, but obviously much more to do.
So when we think about, to your point, women in the workforce, right? Because we need to support all moms, all parents. But when we think about the unique challenges about women in the workforce, let's talk about that in the context also of what we're doing with Build Back Better, which has passed out of the House of Representatives. We expect that the Senate will pass it. But it is about also saying that parents should not have to spend more than 7% of their income in childcare. Because with the demands, right, with the financial demands of parenting and living, it should not be impossible for a working parent to have that kind of support. Can you talk a little bit about the experience that you've had and the parents you've talked with who need this kind of assistance?
Yeah, it's really been just amazing to see the individuals, who do need the support, and hear their stories, of what their days are like and what the struggles look like, that everyday person who is trying to make it. And to your point, that's so necessary, so needed, and has such an impact on their lives, and for them to be able to, to continue making their livelihood.
So as we close out this conversation, let's think about the basic points that we want policymakers at the local level, at the statewide level, and of course we have so many leaders, we had so many of them on the stage, the Congress members. What do we want them to think about in terms of the experience in a way that dictates what they prioritize for public policy? So starting with the issue of, for example, one of my bills when I was in the Senate saying, let's deal with training healthcare professionals. Including let us honor the work of doulas
Yes.
and midwives and understand how they can actually teach others in the healthcare delivery system, including doctors, because there's a lot that they know that actually can be shared in a way that enhances the experience that women going through the process have. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think that training is absolutely key.
Yeah.
When you speak about doulas and just their impact in the community and how they can communicate some of these complex situations to people and the trust that you have. And so I think that's huge to be able to prepare people. And I think about, you know, my own experience in going to the doctor and not being told that I was at risk, not having that preparation or even having my mind go to a place where this is something that I should be thinking about and how can I prepare and plan for if things don't go exactly right. So thinking about that experience of women as they go and interact with their doctors and right from that initial moment, you know, how their care will be given to them. And to your point of the training and the doula and really addressing that implicit bias that we've seen for so long.
And on that issue, because we know that for so many women, the disparity in terms of how they're treated, right? I mean, first of all, let's say that there is a lot in the healthcare system that actually helps and can help all women.
Yes.
But the way that that is administered can be the issue on whether all women are treated equally.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about, are the resources in the healthcare system? But on this issue, we also know that it is also about how the resources are used and who receives those resources. And so it is important to teach about the biases that may inform the diagnosis and the treatment.
Yeah.
But also let's think about women in rural America. And it's also about the lack of availability. So much of what we are talking about in terms of the Build Back Better approach is to say we need to have resources in rural America to assist these mothers and their partners and their husbands to get the resources they need, to get mobile units out there so that they can receive the same kind of treatment. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think those resources are so important because a lot of these issues where we're seeing women face death are happening postpartum. And when you talk about these rural areas, they do not have access if there is an issue. Then having a plan to get back to, you know, a hospital that is equipped to deal with these issues is a whole nother concern. So it's not only, you know, through the pregnancy, but it's afterwards. And really hearing, you know, the issues. I think a lot of times we run into problems because women are bringing up that something feels wrong afterwards. And it's being dismissed. And so, yes, the rural areas, you know, having that access and those resources is huge. And for all women postpartum, really focusing on, you know, hearing when there is an issue.
That's right. And that's the point also, which I really appreciate you stressing, which is we are talking about supporting mothers to mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's about it is from the pregnancy through childbirth and then all that comes after. One of the things I'm particularly excited about is that what we will do is extend support through Medicaid to say that postpartum support should not just be 60 days after childbirth. That's not going to deal with what we need to actually address. Let's do it for a year.
Yeah.
And it's about everything from exams to what a mother often may need in terms of postpartum depression and what we need to do around treating the whole body, which includes from the neck up, and that's about addressing any health issues that she needs in terms of mental health support. So critically important.
I'm so excited about that as well because I've heard far too many heartbreaking stories of losing mothers who aren't able to mother their children, things that were preventable. And that time is crucial. So I think that's going to have such an impact to be able to have that year long and really to be able to address those issues.
That's, losing mothers was the phrase you used. We cannot be a society that is losing mothers. And it's so preventable.
Absolutely.
And part of it is being clear that we're not going to let them feel alone. We're not going to let them be alone. and they're too precious.
Yeah.
You know, I gave a speech earlier, and when you support mothers, you support children, you support the future of our country.
Yeah.
It's just that basic.
Yeah. It's so important. And I think immediately, you know, we'll feel the impact of that and see the lives change. And yeah, it's so important.
Thank you, Allyson.
Thank
it's
you
good
so
to be
much.
with you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.